welcome to the UTI Swatantra series powered by ET Now. I'm Faye D'Souza. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a very interesting topic this week. We're talking about saving tax, and I know it's something that all viewers and investors care very, very deeply about. Over the next half hour, we'll give you all the solutions you need when it comes to saving tax. Let me introduce my panelists for today. Mr. R. Raja is Head of Products at UTI AMC. And Jaydeep Parekh is the founding partner at Panam Shares and Services. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in. Jaydeep, I want to start with you here. There are, a lot of different ways I can save tax, and in the last 1 year, the finance minister has also increased the cap for everybody. So a lot of us are looking around now saying, how do I, bridge that extra 50,000 rupees or the extra 1 lakh rupees that I have to invest now? When you look at the options for a basic investor, a basic salaried investor, what's the most interesting option that you can see in the market today?
It depends on the time horizon they have, right? If they have a reasonable time horizon, we would definitely suggest the ELSS.
Define reasonable.
3 years, which is the lock-in period anyways. Okay. But 5 years is good enough.
So ideally, if I have a 5-year lock-in, if I have the ability to stay invested for 5 years, the ELSS is the best option according to you.
Anyways, it is the best. Okay. Right. But it provides an absolute comfort level.
All right. Raja, do you agree? ELSS is the best option?
ELSS is the best option in one sense. Is basically it's the one which has equity investment. Normally, any tax savings product, for the tax, the returns may be slightly less than the market. Here, it's invested in equities, just like any other equity fund. People definitely has to invest equity with a long-term horizon, and ELSS gives the additional benefit of tax benefits. So that makes the returns much more than a normal equity fund. Anyway, I have to invest in equity for a long-term financial plan, and I get tax benefits, is all the more better.
Well, mostly all ELSS funds are equity diversified funds, which means that they invest across the market. But is there a difference in the composition of that fund? So, for example, are they funds that are more aggressive? Are they funds that are slightly more conservative? So, if I'm choosing as an investor, I'm investing in equity anyways, but maybe I want to pick a slightly more conservative option. So, is that an option within the products?
To some extent, yes. Under ELSS, I do agree, everything is an equity fund. You have under ATC some mutual fund products which are not fully equity oriented, which has a mix of debt and equity. But under ELSS, we have only equity oriented funds. But at the same time, all equity, you have small cap, mid cap, and large cap funds. There are some funds which predominantly invest in large cap, giving a comfort of stability and perhaps a less volatility. Some of them take aggressive view of investing in mid cap and small caps also. So when you see, because all of them have a track record of 5 years, 10 years, or even more than that, you have to see the portfolio and perhaps see how the fund manager over the years have changed the portfolio. Not that small cap fund will continue to be small cap, but they could take aggressive position and shift. Perhaps they maybe go anywhere fund. Some of the funds will have a style purity, which invest predominantly in large cap, stick to that. So when you evaluate the returns, you have to see the underlying portfolio also. All
right. So I choose based on, my risk appetite and where largely the fund tends to lean, whether it is large cap, mid cap, or small cap. Do you have anything else to add to that checklist if I'm picking an equity-linked savings scheme, other than the fund management style and the composition of the fund? What else should I keep in mind?
You just need to know, first of all, your own risk appetite.
How do I gauge my risk appetite?
That's an advisor will be able to do that for you, because he would have a set of questions. Once you answer those questions, he will be able to gauge.
Give us an example of those questions for our viewers who are here and for those watching at home. If I want to quickly, do it myself sort of test on a piece of paper right now, give me a set of questions I
would straight away ask a question that if you see your investment going down by 20%, how are you going to react? Okay. Based on their reply, I would understand. At least it will give me some sort of an indication, right? Please understand one thing. Investment, when we say whether it is from the tax purpose or for any purpose, investment should be something which can or should at least beat the inflation. Otherwise, you are degrowing, correct? So ELSS is probably one of the option which over a period, and that's why I said 5 years, right, would more or less beat the inflation and give you a return of, on an average, we have seen is 15%.
Right.
But conservatively also, if we were to say 12%, it still beats the inflation.
Okay.
Right. So if we were to take the inflation is of 8%, 12% is safe enough, good enough.
Provided I stay invested for at least 5 years.
3 years anyways you have a lock-in,
Yeah.
right? And then we do the handholding and we explain to them,
Yeah.
right? They stay the course, the longer you stay, the power of compounding works,
Actually,
and it's in their benefit.
This is the most important thing to explain to any investor or viewer, the fact that just because the 3-year lock-in is over does not mean I have to take my money
not
out.
at all.
I can actually leave it invested.
In fact, that's one of the beauty of this ELSS schemes. Everything time to enter is determined. Even time to exit in most of the ELSS products is a closed product. After 5 years, 8 years, you have to encash. But here you can determine the time to exit. It can be 3 years. If the market conditions don't favor you, can stay for 5 years. And the last 3 years, it has been those who have stayed, who had patience, it has been good returns for them. So the time to exit also is one of the beauty of this product, that you can determine and not determined by the fund or the product.
Actually, I have just one simple thumb rule for exiting. If you need the money, then exit. If you don't need the money, just leave it in, right?
Absolutely.
All right. On that note, we're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll take questions from our audience. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the UTI Swatantra series powered by ET. Now we're talking about saving tax and perhaps using mutual funds to save tax for this year. We have questions from our audience members. The gentleman in the front.
I just want to know, is this too early to start for the tax planning?
For this year, you're talking about planning for this year?
Financial year.
Actually, this is interesting. A lot of, it's called the tax quarter, because a lot of the investments happen between Jan, Feb and March. And that's when people go out running and, buy an investment or the other. My belief is you should start in April and you should invest through the year. So ideally, if someone were to save on tax for this year, when should they get started?
Today.
Okay.
As early as they can. I mean, it should have been done in the, say, first week of April itself. We need to plan it in advance. Generally, people know what is the tax bracket they are in and how much they need to put it into the tax saving plan. Now, if we were to choose an equity-linked product, what happens is you get the rupee averaging also when you do then SIP in the ELSS. So you capture the market volatility, you are buying in when the markets are up and you are buying when the markets are down as well. Right? It helps you average out. That's one thing. Second thing is if you were to choose a PPF or any other product, the power of compounding works. 8% on or 9% on 8 months, 10 months, vis-a-vis 8% on or 8.5% on 12 months. Right? So if you have a lump sum, you can decide, your advisor will help you decide whether you want, if it is an ELSS, whether you want to do it through an STP or you want to do an SIP. There are multiple products available for the tax planning. It has to be goal-based. In the sense, if you're going to need the funds in 3 years, you have a product like ELSS, because probably that is the only product which has the shortest lock-in period. PPF would have 15 years. NSCs and others would have a much larger lock-in period. ELSS is one product which has the shortest period of lock-in, 3 years. Again, and it beats the inflation as well.
Mr. Raj, I want to bring you in here. If I invest, like you suggested, every month, instead of waiting till the end of the year and putting in a lump sum, what is the advantage? Can you explain to us the advantage we get as an investor for investing a little bit through the year instead of waiting till, say, February and putting that entire maybe 1.5 lakh rupees in one go?
One thing is you can start a systematic investment plan in April by investing a very small amount. It's not a big amount. It can be as low as 500 rupees depending upon the plan you invest. The second one is you diversify. Mutual funds is about diversification, investing across various assets or across various securities. In SIP, you diversify across time. Today, suppose I invest a lump sum, perhaps the market tanks immediately. Perhaps I am a prisoner of this time. But whereas if you invest every month, as he has told that it's a rupee cost averaging, you diversify across time. One investment may be, one timing may be a good time for invest, the next one will be compensated if the market crashes, or if the market goes up, then you get the benefit of diversification of time. So that's the thing, and it gives you, inculcates a discipline also. Because systematic investment plan, if you want to invest, you perhaps postpone it up to January, February, and perhaps you may not have the money to invest also. And your salary comes every month. So every month should go to SIP, a small amount, it need not be a big, you can top it up in January, February, March, but you can invest a small amount and it inculcates a discipline towards your goal of saving tax before 31st March.
You know, this is the interesting thing. I have another advantage for investing in the beginning of the year, is that you can take your time, do your research, decide where you want to invest. When you wait till January, February, March, then you're on a clock. And you're racing against time. It has to be done. You will wind up buying the first option available, whether it's good for you or not, and just filing it, because it has to be done within a certain time. So if you start in April, you can spend 3 months, if you want to, just picking an investment really carefully, being happy with it, making sure it's good for you, and then starting your investment. Do we have any questions on this side? Yes, the young lady.
What are the advantages of tax-saving funds?
In comparison to other tax-saving instruments?
Correct.
Okay. This is the interesting thing. We've culturally been taught that tax-saving is sort of a debt-linked product, right? So there's PF, there's PPF, there is traditional insurance policies, all of which tend to give you sort of a guaranteed return, a guaranteed payback after a certain point of time. And then the only two equity-linked options now are the NPS and ELSS. How does the ELSS rate in comparison to all of the rest of these options?
If the investor has a little longer horizon, which I mentioned right in the beginning, ELSS scores over all the other products. The issue with the ELSS being an equity-linked product is you don't know whether you are going to get the returns front end or it's going to be the back end. Returns will definitely catch in, right? While the rest of the product, you know for sure 8% every year I'm going to get it, or whatever the percentage is, right? Which doesn't happen in the equity-linked. But that's one product which over a period of time is going to give, the statistics are there, the data are there to prove, which would definitely give you a much higher return than any traditional product, and it would beat the inflation. I am repeating that the investment, whenever you invest in anything, you should consider whether that particular product is beating the inflation or not. Otherwise, you are degrowing your money.
But beating inflation is a concern we should have over 5 years, right? Or over 10 years. Because if I'm investing only for 3 years, then inflation doesn't really have much of an impact on that money.
Yeah, but that's a wrong notion. Why 3 years? That's where we advisors always help the clients and tell them that why do you want to get out? Unless you need money, please don't get out. Let the power of compounding work for you.
Mr. Raja, in comparison to, say, a unit-linked insurance plan or an NPS, how does the ELSS rate then in that case? Because we've compared it to the debt products. What about to the equity products within that same category?
See, NPS is not purely equity. It's a mix of debt and equity. NPS, of course, get other benefits of extra 50,000. But ELSS being a pure equity product, anybody has to invest equity. And any investor is risk averse because he doesn't know what the returns in equity will be. That's one of the issues which any investor. Now these tax benefits, be it if you are in the highest tax bracket, 30% plus tax benefit or 20% gives you a margin of comfort for the risk averse investor. I've got something, and this house money keeps him in good stead even if there is a volatility in the returns of equity, because I've already got the benefit. Something, even if there is a depreciation which is temporary, it is going to be made up because I have already got the tax benefit. This is from the psychological point of view. But otherwise, I feel that one more thing, as he has spoken about liquidity within lock-in period of 3 years, which is the lowest. There's another plus point of a ELSS product. if you choose a dividend option, I don't say that growth, you have to go to growth in equity, but somebody who wants a cash flow also, unlike other products where everything is cumulated and paid after 7 or 8 years, here you can get a cash flow in the form of dividend if you choose the dividend plan of ELSS. That benefit is also there, that choice is also there. It's left to the choice of the investor. Should you grow and get a lump sum after 7 or 8 years, or he just wants to get a dividend flow in respect of this ELSS products.
Do we have any more questions? Yes, please go ahead.
So how do we rate the risk factor involved in ULIP as against ELSS?
There are ULIP of mutual funds which there are a couple of ULIP of mutual funds which invest in a mix of equity and balance.
And give you an insurance cover.
And gives an insurance cover, which are quite a few in the mutual fund industry, which follow the mutual fund norms in respect of expenses. The one thing of ULIP of insurance company, one has to verify the expenses, how much it is, because how much is the expenses and compare it with that. Both invest in equity, but ULIP is a much more larger period because it gives you a commitment, because 15 years or 20 years you have to invest for a longer duration, and if the liquidity over a shorter duration will be a little bit constrained.
But if taking this argument, if I'm investing in the stock market right now through either a ULIP or a mutual fund, and the ULIP mandates that I stay in for about 15 years, although the lock-in is only 3 years at this point, then doesn't that bring down my risk over a period of time if I were to stay invested for the entire 15 years?
That has a constraint that the option of liquidity is not there.
Yes.
Here it is there, and he can choose to stay for 15 years. So investors who perhaps want to stay here, because it's just like an equity fund, it doesn't give less returns than any other equity fund. Whatever the portfolio gives, it gives the returns. If he wants to stay perpetually also, he can stay. And he can choose a dividend option also if he wants cash flow.
You wanted to add something?
See, if anybody who wants to remain invested for 15 years, right, ELSS, as we have already said, that it's cost effective. Cost is lower than the ULIP. Right?
Not as low as the NPS.
Not definitely not. But then, like he said, there is a debt component.
Yes.
Right? So investor needs to be very clear at the beginning itself, and that comes with the risk profiling. Right? If he or she chooses the equity, let's say he or she is comfortable with that temporary fluctuations or the volatility of the market, ELSS is the best. Low cost compared to any other. And the most important other thing is, the returns are also tax-free. Of course, ULIP is also tax-free, but barring these two products, most of the other tax saving products, you need to check whether the returns are tax-free or not. There are bank FDs, there are other products also, the post office, the NSC. But please understand what the product's USP is, what you are getting into. Just because somebody comes and tells you, don't buy. Understand the product first. Decide what is your time horizon. Although it's a lock-in period of 3 years or 15 years, doesn't matter. It's your money. You need to have a goal. You need to know what it is.
Sure.
I'll just supplement his views. ELSS, NPS and ELSS both are tax-saving product, but we have to find the difference. We have to note the difference. ELSS is a EEE, exempt, exempt, exempt. Your returns are exempt. Your dividends are exempt from tax. It's not only the investment which are exempt, whereas NPS is exempt tax. So at the time of withdrawal, all your returns, whatever other than conversion to annuity, are taxable. Even your principal, what you withdraw, will be taxable. So it suits a few people, especially those who have a lower income after retirement. It may be beneficial to them. So we have to know each product caters to a different category, and people have to evaluate the product and the tax efficiency before investing in that.
All right. So if you're choosing between a debt, investment and an equity investment, choose based on how you'll beat inflation over the long term using an equity investment. If you're choosing between the equity investments, there's a lock-in, there's liquidity that you want to consider, the asset allocation, and finally taxation and treatment on maturity when you withdraw that money, and the discipline that product will offer you. When we come back from this very quick break, we'll take more questions from our audience. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the UTI Swatantra series powered by ET Now. Thank you for staying with us. We're talking about saving tax and using mutual funds. We have a couple of questions from our audience members. There's a young lady at the back. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know what is the minimum investment one has to do for ELSS?
Okay, Ajay, what is the minimum investment?
It's 500 rupees in most of the schemes. It's 500 rupees.
Actually, I'm going to ask one, take the question one step further. So there's a minimum investment that the scheme needs, which is I have to put in at least 500 rupees a month in order to qualify for that investment. But how do I decide how much I need to put in? Because there is that entire component that I need to save tax. So I have a portion that I have to save. There's a PF deduction already going compulsorily out of my account, which is tax-free, so I can take that away. Do I just invest the rest of it in the ELSS?
Yes. Your tax consultant would be able to tell you that what your EPF and the deductions are happening, and this is the rest of the amount that you need to invest. So once you know that figure, you have to invest the balance.
Right. So when you know that figure divided by 12, start an SIP right now, so that by the time you reach February, March, you're sorted, right?
If you're not sure, right, from the last year's experience, you would know. What you can do is, you can start on a monthly basis, at least some amount. Later on in the year, you can top up, if you're falling short of the amount. Let's say your EPF is X, and Y is to be invested, which is the balance. Start divided by 12, and at least start from the April itself. Don't wait.
The young lady on this side had a question.
I'm not invested anywhere. So will you recommend me investing 100% into ELSS?
100% of what? Of your investable corpus?
Yes.
Okay.
Generally, I mean, I've seen people saying that 50% should be should go into that and then into the mutual funds or equity. So how is that?
A young person investing in equity is always a good thing, but someone who's never invested before might want to take baby steps, wouldn't you say?
Wouldn't advise straight away the equity fund. The balance fund would be the right way to go.
But if she needs to save tax?
You first be very clear. You're talking about investment or you're talking about tax investments?
Investments.
So that's the difference, right? If we are talking about ELSS, then you need to again distribute, right? But if you are a first time, if you are even the first time, if you don't understand the equity, no matter how good or how great you are in taking risk, it's not advisable. Because you feel today that you will be able to take that risk, but when it actually happens, you need to see. Right? Once you understand your risk appetite and your behavior when you see, your reaction when you see amount going slightly down, maybe 5%, 10%, ask yourself how you are reacting and then do it. There is always a time, you are young. Next year, following year, you can always go full-fledged equity. But don't rush into it.
Yeah, okay.
Under Section 80C, we have retirement plans of mutual funds and also ULIPs of a couple of mutual funds which give exemption under 80C which are not fully equity. Somebody who wants a balanced fund which is 60% invested in debt.
Wouldn't NPS right now be the best balanced fund for someone like her? I mean, it's in your Section 80C now. It has a complete component of its own. It functions technically like a balanced fund, right? It's half debt, half equity. So would that be a good idea instead of using, say, a ULIP?
See, ULIP has its own benefit because it's again that EET comes. Here also most of the returns are not as tax-free as equity fund, totally tax-free, but still the tax incidence is too low. So that's the call which the investor has to take. And NPS is the money comes only on retirement. Should we wait? Then what determines is the investment goal. Is this a retirement planning? Is it a need for a 10 years or 15 years? Some requirement for this requirement for these investments. That's perhaps should determine rather than tax. First is what is the financial planning. The first step is what is the investment goals, how to approach that, and where should I invest in various assets. First we have to decide. This tax increases the returns and accelerates the reach of the financial goal. So before tax planning, first we have to do the investment goals, define that, and then use tax to reach your destination faster.
Time horizon plays an important role.
Okay.
in deciding the product.
Yes. In fact, this is the most important thing. When we say financial goal, a financial goal has to have two things. It has to have the actual amount that you need and the time in which you need it. Both of those are important for a financial goal. That will help you decide what product you need to use. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the show and answering all of our questions. You've been a lovely audience. Thank you for joining us as well. If you'd like to join us in the studio, all you have to do is log on to indiainvestkaro.com or leave us a question on Twitter, #InvestKaro. Thank you so much for watching.
Brought to you by UTI Mutual Fund. हक एक बेहतर जिंदगी का.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all the scheme-related documents carefully.